Family, I need you to hear me today because this isn't just another sermon, it's a survival strategy. We live in a world that will test your patience, challenge your peace, and try to bait you into battles that are beneath your destiny. But I came to tell you that you've got to train yourself to be unbothered, not because life doesn't sting, not because people won't disappoint you, but because your purpose is too precious to be disrupted by every distraction. God didn't call you to live tossed around by every opinion, every comment, every attack. He called you to stand firm, rooted, and unshaken. So today, let's talk about how to train yourself to be unbothered. There is nothing the enemy wants more than to snatch your peace. Because when you lose your peace, you lose your focus. And when you lose your focus, you begin to drift away from your purpose. Peace is not just about feeling calm. It's the atmosphere where clarity is born. It's the environment where God whispers his instructions and strategies into your spirit. But if your peace is constantly being stolen by drama, chaos, or negativity, then the enemy doesn't even have to fight you head on. All he has to do is keep you distracted long enough for you to miss what God is trying to tell you.
Think about it.
Every time you've allowed someone's opinion to derail your confidence, every time you've let an argument linger in your spirit longer than it should have, every time you replayed the offense in your mind like a broken record, what did it cost you? It cost you time, energy, creativity, and faith. It cost you the ability to think clearly about what God is building in your life. Protecting your peace is not selfish. It's stewardship. It's saying, I value what God placed in me too much to let anything contaminate it. And let's be real, protecting your peace doesn't mean you won't have storms. It means you learn how to anchor yourself when the storm comes. Jesus was on a boat with his disciples when a storm broke out. They were panicking, crying, thinking they were about to drown, but Jesus was asleep. How do you sleep in a storm? Because Jesus understood that peace is not the absence of chaos. It's the presence of confidence. Confidence that no matter what's happening around me, it will not destroy me because I know who controls the waves and the wind. We have to train ourselves to adopt that same posture, to stop running into every storm trying to fix it with our hands when God already said, be still and know that I am God. Sometimes the loudest weapon you can use against the enemy is silence. Not everything deserves your reaction. Not every battle needs your attendance. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is refuse to let the chaos pull you out of character. Because every time you step out of character, you step away from purpose. See, the devil doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. If he can get you so busy fighting small battles, you'll be too tired to fight the real one. If he can get you rehearsing offenses, you won't have the energy to birth what God has placed inside you. Protecting your peace is drawing a line and saying, I refuse to let what's happening around me dictate what's happening within me. And let's be honest, protecting your peace takes training because the flesh wants to clap back. The flesh wants to defend itself, expose the liar, and prove the doubters wrong. But when you live like that, you live on a leash, controlled by whatever comes at you. To train yourself to be unbothered, you have to practice choosing peace, even when your emotions scream war. You've got to say, I could respond, but I won't. I could fight, but I won't. I could let this keep me up at night, but I won't. That's how you train yourself. By making intentional choices not to surrender your peace to temporary battles. Think about Nehemiah. He was building the wall, minding his assignment, and people kept trying to distract him. They wanted him to come down and debate, to come down and defend himself, to come down and waste time proving who he was. But Nehemiah said, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. That's how you protect your peace. You stay on the wall. You keep building. You don't come down to argue with folks who don't even have the capacity to understand your assignment. Some of you are exhausted not because of what God called you to do, but because of what you allowed to pull you down from the wall. You've got to ask yourself, is this worth my peace? Is this worth my purpose? Is this worth my energy? If the answer is no, then you've got to learn how to release it before it takes root. Because peace isn't just a feeling, it's a weapon. It keeps you focused, it keeps you sharp, it keeps you in position to hear from God. The enemy knows if he can disrupt your peace, he can make you miss your timing. But when you stand guard over your peace, you position yourself to receive divine instructions that will launch you into your next season. Now, let me press this a little further, because sometimes the thing that robs us of peace is not what others do to us, but what we do to ourselves. The negative self-talk, the guilt, the regret, the shame we carry. You can't train yourself to be unbothered if you're still bothered by your own reflection. You've got to protect your peace, even from your past. God has already forgiven you, but you're still punishing yourself. That's why your spirit can't rest. But I hear the Lord saying, whom the Son sets free is free indeed. Protecting your peace means letting go of the mistakes you cannot change and embracing the grace you cannot earn. And hear me, peace doesn't mean passivity. It doesn't mean you ignore reality or pretend like things don't hurt. It means you choose not to live in that hurt. It means you acknowledge the pain, but you don't let it poison your purpose. It means you see the chaos, but you choose to walk in calm. Peace is power. Peace is strength. Peace is the ability to keep moving forward when everything around you is trying to pull you backward. Family, protecting your peace is protecting your purpose, because you cannot build when you're broken down. You cannot create when your spirit is constantly in chaos. You cannot hear God clearly when your mind is cluttered with everything else. Some of you need to start setting boundaries, not because people are evil, but because your purpose is too expensive to keep paying the price of unnecessary battles. Your peace is the soil where your purpose grows. If the soil is contaminated, the seed cannot thrive. Guard your peace, because without it, your purpose cannot survive. When you start moving toward your calling, distractions show up like clockwork. It's almost as if the moment you decide to take your life seriously, everything that could pull you off course suddenly comes knocking. That's not a coincidence, it's confirmation. Distractions are not random inconveniences. They're targeted attacks. They're proof that what you're carrying is significant. The enemy doesn't waste time disturbing someone who isn't a threat. He only throws distractions in the path of those who are on their way to destiny. Look at your life. The moment you started praying more consistently, here came unnecessary arguments. The moment you started working on your discipline, here came unexpected temptations. The moment you said yes to God's assignment, here came drama that you didn't ask for. That's because the enemy understands that he can't take your destiny, but he can make you forfeit it by luring you into distraction. If he can get you off track, if he can drain your energy, if he can redirect your focus, he doesn't have to steal what God gave you. You'll lay it down yourself. That's why you've got to start reinterpreting the presence of distractions. Stop seeing them as a sign that you're failing and start seeing them as evidence that you're actually on the right track. Nobody throws rocks at an empty house. Nobody tries to rob someone who has nothing of value. The weight of your distractions reveals the weight of your destiny. If your distractions are heavy, it's because what you carry is heavy. If your distractions are persistent, it's because your destiny is powerful. Think about Joseph. God gave him a dream of greatness, a vision that one day he would be elevated. But before he could even step into that destiny, distractions showed up at every turn. His brothers hated him. He was thrown into a pit. He was sold into slavery. He was falsely accused. He was locked in prison. All of those were distractions meant to make him question if the dream was real. And yet every single setback was also evidence that the dream was alive. If he hadn't carried something worth fighting for, he wouldn't have faced so much opposition. But the very fact that distraction after distraction came against him was proof that his destiny was too great to ignore. Sometimes we get so fixated on the presence of distractions that we miss the message they carry. The message is simple. You are a threat. You are dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. You are carrying something that will change the atmosphere, shift the culture, and impact generations. And that's why distractions surround you. But hear me, just because distractions show up doesn't mean you have to engage them. You can acknowledge their presence without granting them your participation. The enemy's strategy is subtle. He doesn't always bring distractions in the form of loud attacks. Sometimes he sends them in whispers. A little insecurity here, a little comparison there, a little temptation that makes you think it's not that serious. But if you're not careful, those small distractions will slowly bleed your destiny dry. You'll look up months later, wondering why you feel stuck, not realizing it was the accumulation of little distractions that kept you from moving forward. And then there are the obvious distractions, the kind that come dressed in drama, the kind that show up as people who don't understand your growth, the kind that pull you back into cycles you already broke. That's when you've got to remember that destiny requires discernment. You don't have time to entertain everything. You don't have the bandwidth to give attention to things that don't align with where God is taking you. Some of you need to start asking yourself, does this distraction deserve my energy, or is my destiny too valuable for me to get entangled in this? Jesus is the perfect example of how to respond to distractions. When he was fasting in the wilderness, the enemy came with distraction after distraction. Turn these stones into bread. Throw yourself down from this mountain. Worship me and I'll give you the kingdoms of the world. Each distraction was designed to pull him away from his assignment, to get him to settle for something less than his purpose. But Jesus resisted. He knew that not every opportunity is destiny, and not every temptation deserves a response. He stayed focused because he understood that giving in to distraction would delay his destiny. And notice, those distractions came right before his ministry began. That's not a coincidence. The closer you get to your breakthrough, the more distractions will try to crowd your path. Some of you are wondering why everything feels like it's falling apart right now. It's because you're on the edge of something. The distractions are intensifying because your destiny is about to manifest. The storm always rages hardest before the breakthrough arrives. Let's be clear, distractions don't always look like problems. Sometimes they look like blessings. An open door that isn't really your door. A relationship that feels good but pulls you away from God. An opportunity that pays well but costs you your peace. The enemy doesn't always fight with opposition. Sometimes he fights with options. That's why you need discernment to know the difference between a divine opportunity and a demonic distraction. Because not everything that glitters is God. When Nehemiah was rebuilding the wall, people kept trying to distract him. They said, come down, let's talk, let's debate, let's meet. But Nehemiah refused. He said, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. That's the kind of discipline distractions demand. The ability to say, I know this conversation looks urgent, I know this drama looks tempting, but I am too busy building to come down. My destiny is calling me, and I refuse to answer distractions instead. But here's the part we often miss. Distractions don't just reveal your destiny, they also reveal your discipline. They test how badly you want what God promised you. They test whether you're willing to walk away from comfort to embrace calling. They test if you're strong enough to resist what's easy so you can reach for what's eternal. Every time you resist a distraction, you're training your spirit to prioritize destiny. Every time you choose focus over foolishness, you're building the muscles you need to sustain what God is bringing into your life. Family, if distractions are proof of destiny, then you don't need to fear them. You need to flip them. Flip them into reminders. Every time a distraction comes, remind yourself, this is proof that I'm carrying something. This is proof that my life matters. This is proof that I am on the right track. Instead of being discouraged by distractions, let them fuel your determination. Let them remind you that the enemy wouldn't be coming so hard if there wasn't something powerful on the other side. There is a difference between responding and reacting. And if you don't learn that difference, you will spend your whole life giving your power away. A reaction is impulsive, it's emotional, it's often fueled by anger, insecurity, or fear. A response, on the other hand, is intentional. It comes from a place of wisdom, from a place of strength, from a place of alignment with God. When you react, you give control to the situation. When you respond, you take control back. That's why self-control is not weakness. It's warfare. It's how you fight without even raising your voice. Some of you have been exhausted not because of what happened to you, but because of how much you've been reacting to everything. Every offense, every comment, every betrayal, every disappointment, it keeps pulling you into a whirlwind of reactions. And after every reaction, you're drained, you're frustrated, you're distracted. That's exactly what the enemy wants. He doesn't need to defeat you directly. He just needs to provoke you enough that you defeat yourself. But when you start operating in self-control, when you start pausing before you speak, praying before you move, and discerning before you act, you shift the power dynamic. Suddenly, the thing that was designed to trigger you loses its grip. Suddenly, the same people who used to get under your skin can't touch your peace anymore, because you've trained yourself to respond instead of react. Let's look at Jesus. Over and over again, people tried to provoke him. They mocked him. They questioned him. They lied on him. They set traps for him. And when he was on the cross, they even told him, if you're really the Son of God, come down and prove it. Do you know how easy it would have been for Jesus to react, to clap back, to perform a miracle out of spite, to show them who he really was? But he didn't. Because he wasn't living to prove himself to people, he was living to fulfill his purpose for God. His lack of reaction was not weakness, it was strength. It was the discipline of knowing that destiny matters more than dignity, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is stay silent when everything in you wants to respond in anger. Reactions are often about proving a point. Responses are about preserving your purpose. Reactions satisfy your flesh in the moment, but they rob you of peace in the long run. Responses may not always feel good in the moment, but they protect your destiny. That's why you've got to learn how to pause. That pause between what they did to you and how you handle it. That pause is where God has room to step in. That pause is where wisdom rises. That pause is where you trade offense for strategy. When you react, you close the pause. But when you respond, you make space for God to guide you. Think about how many situations in your life would look different if you had responded instead of reacted. The friendship that ended over a heated argument. The opportunity you lost because you couldn't hold your tongue. The peace you forfeited because you let someone pull you into their chaos. And then think about how powerful it felt the times you didn't give in, the times you didn't respond the way they expected, the times you chose calm instead of chaos. That's the power of self-control. It makes you unpredictable to the enemy. He thought you were going to lose it, but you didn't. He thought you were going to spiral, but you didn't. He thought he could bait you into blowing up your blessing, but you didn't. And every time you resist the urge to react, you remind the enemy that your emotions don't own you. You own them. Self-control is a fruit of the Spirit, which means it's not something you can manufacture on your own. It's not about gritting your teeth and holding back. It's about staying so connected to God that His Spirit gives you the strength to pause when you want to lash out, to forgive when you want to hold a grudge, to stay focused when you want to walk away. That's why prayer is so important. That's why being rooted in the Word matters, because you can't respond with wisdom if you're not filled with wisdom. You can't choose peace if peace isn't being cultivated inside you daily. What comes out of you in a moment of pressure is what you've been feeding yourself in private. If you've been feeding your flesh, reactions will rule you. But if you've been feeding your spirit, responses will shape you. The enemy studies your reactions. He knows your triggers. He knows how to push you, how to frustrate you, how to get under your skin, and he'll keep pressing those buttons as long as you keep reacting. But the moment you stop reacting, the moment you start choosing your responses, the moment you refuse to be predictable, his whole strategy falls apart. He can't use the same traps when you don't fall for them anymore. That's why self-control is warfare. It confuses the enemy. He doesn't know what to do with a woman or man who refuses to be baited into battle. But let me be real with you. Responding instead of reacting is not easy. It takes practice. It takes training. It takes learning how to hold your tongue when every part of you wants to speak. It takes learning how to breathe when your emotions feel like they're boiling. It takes learning how to pray in the middle of conflict instead of waiting until after. And sometimes it means walking away. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response. Sometimes the best thing you can do for your spirit is to disengage. To say, I don't even need to fight this because the Lord will fight for me. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And here's the truth. When you respond instead of react, you're not just protecting yourself. You're also protecting what God is building through you. Because your reactions don't just affect you. They affect everyone connected to you. Your children are watching how you handle pressure. Your friends are learning from how you carry yourself in conflict. Your community is being influenced by how you show up when you're under attack. Every time you choose to respond with wisdom instead of react with anger, you're modeling strength. You're teaching others that self-control is not about suppressing who you are. It's about elevating who you are. There will always be people who try to pull you into their drama. There will always be situations designed to provoke you. But you don't have to attend every battle you're invited to. You don't have to react to every comment, every insult, every misunderstanding. Your purpose is too big to keep shrinking down to the size of petty arguments. When you choose to respond instead of react, you're saying, I know who I am. I know what I carry. I know where I'm going. And I refuse to let anything small pull me out of position. Think about Moses. God called him to lead the Israelites into the promised land. But one day, the people pushed his buttons. They complained, they doubted, they frustrated him. God told him to speak to the rock. But Moses reacted in anger and struck it instead. That reaction cost him his promise. He still fulfilled his assignment to a degree, but he didn't walk fully into what God had for him. That's how serious reactions can be. They can cost you opportunities, blessings, and promises that God designed for you. That's why you can't afford to live reactionary. You've got to train yourself to operate in response, to let self-control guide you into the fullness of your destiny. Self-control doesn't mean you never feel anger. It doesn't mean you never feel hurt. It doesn't mean you never feel frustration. It means you don't let those emotions dictate your actions. It means you acknowledge them, but you don't surrender to them. It means you let the Spirit of God be louder than the voice of your flesh. Because when you let your flesh lead, you end up in regret. But when you let the Spirit lead, you end up in alignment. Everybody wants elevation, but not everybody wants the discipline that comes with it. See, it's easy to ask God to take you higher, but what happens when higher also means heavier? What happens when the next level requires you to carry more responsibility, more pressure, more visibility? Elevation doesn't just stretch your gift, it tests your character. It doesn't just magnify your voice, it magnifies your emotions. And if you don't have emotional discipline, you will sabotage the very elevation you prayed for. When God elevates you, He doesn't just elevate your blessings, He elevates your battles. The same way you prayed for the platform, prayed for the promotion, prayed for the breakthrough, you've got to also prepare for the pressure that comes with it. Because when the stakes are higher, the attacks are stronger. When the influence is greater, the criticism is louder. When the assignment is bigger, the distractions are bolder. And the only way to survive the weight of that next level is to develop emotional discipline. Emotional discipline means you don't let how you feel dictate how you function. It means you don't let temporary emotions.
Let's stay connected, stay positive, and grow together. Until next time, take care of yourself and each other. Stay safe, stay inspired, and see you in the next video.